much is your time worth? Whether you're a realtor, lawyer, accountant, or even a content creator, Stamps.com gives you the chance to focus your time on what you do best. Don't waste your time mailing letters or shipping packages. Stamps is there to help. Print stamps, shipping labels, or certified mail forms in seconds. Get up to 89% off USPS, UPS, and other carriers, and schedule free package pickups all from one place. Stamps.com also makes it easy to track shipments, manage contacts, and report on how much you send and spend. Over the last 28 years, more than 4 million customers have relied on Stamps.com to make their lives easier. Don't waste time worrying about being a postage expert or standing in line to drop off letters and packages. Let Stamps.com do what they do best so you can do what you do better. Go to Stamps.com/audio to sign up for a special offer. No contract, cancel anytime. That's Stamps.com/audio.
1/3 of all murder cases in America remain open.
He had told me that if I opened my eyes, he would slit my throat.
Each one is called a cold case.
The DNA evidence taken from the victim was a match. The Linden rapist was at it again.
Based on the hit A&E television program.
A phone call is placed, one that changes a family's life forever.
Cold Case Files, the podcast.
You could see the fire in his eyes. He screamed at me, "You want it? Get your tape recorder out."
Get new episodes of Cold Case Files every Tuesday on Podcast One, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 253 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing really good. How about you?
I'm doing well. It has been a tough week.
It has.
The war in Ukraine broke out after you and I recorded last week's episodes.
True.
So this was the first time that we had actually gotten together since it broke out. We talked about it quite a bit on our weekly Patreon episode. You know, our hearts go out to the people of Ukraine, and I just think it's horrible. And my fear is that it's going to get much, much worse. And that it really makes me sad. Heroic. I mean, some of these people, they blow me away.
Oh, for sure.
With the things that they're doing and the way that they're fighting for their country. But at the same time, you know, my heart breaks for them. Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Lorraine Beer.
Hey, Lorraine.
Annie Rousey.
Hey, Annie.
April Schweiger.
Hey, thank you, Schweiger.
Scott Collard.
What's going on, Collard?
Christina Zickert.
Hey, Christina.
Donna Morris.
Hey, Donna.
Sharon Daly.
Well, thank you, Sharon.
Heather Gibson.
What's up, Gibson?
Crystal Lamb.
Hey, Crystal.
Catherine Toussaint Williams.
Toussaint.
Caitlin Razor S.
Hey, what's going on, Razor?
Beaverhausen.
Well, need some Beaverhausen.
Susanna Coyle.
Hey, Susanna.
Chad Stacer.
What's up, Stacer?
And Renee Dover.
Hey, Renee.
So we appreciate that new Patreon support. And if we go into the vault, Gibbs, this week we selected Jimmy Chambers.
Hey, Jimmy.
So we appreciate Jimmy and all the people that continue to support us on Patreon month after month. We had some donations on PayPal from Karen Lawey.
Hey, Karen.
Photo Card Gallery.
Gotta have a photo card gallery.
Teresa Summers.
Hey, Teresa.
And Robert Pearson.
What's going on, Pearson?
Gibbs, we have an episode out on TCAT right now where we're talking about Donald Howard, a husband, a father who hired a hitman, tried to hire multiple hitmen to kill his wife.
Very fascinating episode.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how this guy thought that this action would solve his problems is frankly just something I cannot understand. But make sure you check out that episode. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I'm ready.
We are talking about the 2003 disappearance of LaQuanta Riley. On December 7th, 2003, 19-year-old LaQuanta Riley went out with a friend and was never seen again. LaQuanta quite literally disappeared without a trace. 18 years later, there have been few leads and almost no evidence pointing to what happened to her. The police thought that this was a missing persons case, but the mysterious circumstances surrounding her disappearance and a strange voicemail indicate that someone may have harmed LaQuanta on the night that she disappeared. LaQuanta Nichelle Riley was born on February 26, 1984. Pam Riley was just 16 years old when she gave birth to her daughter. LaQuanta was raised by her great aunt Katie. She kept in regular contact with her mother Pam, and they had a positive mother-daughter relationship.
Probably tough to do at that early age, but hey, that's awesome.
It's awesome that it worked out.
Yes.
Well, and that they were able to really foster this good relationship. But to your point, Gibbs, it is tough. Has to be tough on a 16-year-old. I mean, think back to when you were 16. Is anybody ever really ready for that type of responsibility?
I know I wouldn't have been.
Hell, I was barely ready at 27.
Yeah.
When I had my first child. Now, people do it, and they do it very successfully, but it has to be extremely difficult at that age. LaQuanta had 5 younger siblings. Her brothers have never been named publicly. They've never really spoken to any news outlets because their sister's disappearance has been extremely painful for them. LaQuanta's younger sister, Kamisha, died of AIDS in 1996. And this, too, Gibbs, was a heartbreaking story.
It really was.
Kamisha was molested when she was only 4 years old by a man who was HIV positive. And she was sick for years before she passed away at just 9 years old. LaQuanta's family also experienced a tragic unsolved murder. In 1972, Pam Riley's mother was murdered, and her killer was never found.
So this family has experienced a lot of tragedy.
I would say an extreme amount, right? All families go through tragedy. This is a lot, and some very devastating types of tragedies.
I think it'd be hard to get up in the morning sometimes with all this happening in your life.
Yeah, I agree with you. According to the Charlie Project, LaQuanta's family described her as a vibrant young woman who was bubbly and compassionate. She loved to cook. She enjoyed music. She played the clarinet in both middle and high school. LaQuanta was a nice girl, and she had many, many friends. She wasn't known for getting into trouble or running away for long periods of time. And I think this is exactly why Gibbs, her family, was so concerned when she disappeared.
It wasn't her nature to do so.
No. And sometimes kids are known for disappearing for, extended periods of time. Doesn't mean their family's not going to be worried about them. Does it change the dynamic a little bit if somebody has a track record of, disappearing regularly for long periods of time? Maybe. Now, I think it depends on how old the person is.
True.
If you're an adult, and we have talked about many adults who have gone missing, but it was something that their family said happened quite frequently.
Right.
So sometimes they weren't all that worried, at least initially, because they were kind of used to it.
Yeah. I also think it depends on the circumstances around the disappearance.
Yes, absolutely. LaQuanta graduated from Reedon High School in Stone Mountain, Georgia in 2002. And she was very bright. She graduated with honors. She earned a full college scholarship. She wanted to major in criminal justice and have a career in forensic science.
A true crime person.
Yeah, something that I think I've told you on numerous occasions. If I had to do it all again, if I could go back, 29, 30 years, knowing what I know now,
yeah,
I might have followed a similar path. Knowing my interest in true crime, I think that would be a very interesting and rewarding field to go into.
I can see you doing that.
I could see you doing it in more of a Dexter type role. Maybe,
Sure.
maybe without all the carnage, but there would be something there that's not quite lawful. I don't know exactly what.
It definitely would be unlawful.
You would use the knowledge that you gained
Right.
for nefarious reasons. Let's put it that way.
For the betterment of the community.
I don't know how those two things would go together, but we'll figure it out. Now, LaQuanta hadn't started college yet in 2003, but she was getting ready to. I think what all this information shows is that LaQuanta wasn't a person who, wanted to run away, wanted to start a new life. She was about ready to start her life. Excited to start it, had a plan. Why would she need to go off and start a new one when she hadn't really even started kind of the main thrust of her life even up to that point?
Yeah, because you know how that is. The first time you go off to college, it's exciting.
Sure.
It's the new adventure, and you can't wait to get it started.
No, and she was studious, obviously, graduating with honors, earning a full scholarship.
Yeah.
She was excited about her major, her career choice. I think from everything you read about LaQuanta, she was happy at this point in her life. And that's sometimes the case in these types of episodes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not. People are unhappy. That's where you get into, well, maybe they wanted to start a new life. They weren't happy doing what they were doing. We're definitely not dealing with that here.
It doesn't seem so.
Or at least the signs, by no means point in that direction. LaQuanta lived with a friend from high school in an apartment in Eufaula, Alabama, until Thanksgiving 2003. She decided to move out and move back home to Montgomery for unknown reasons. LaQuanta moved in with her aunt and cousin in the 1500 block of Hill Street in Montgomery. Her Aunt Katie welcomed her with open arms, but she enforced one strict rule: no men in the house.
It's a good rule to have.
I think it's a rule that you should definitely have. I agree with that. Here's what I do like. Yes, you can stay with me anytime you want. I'll do anything for you, but you are living under my roof, and here's my rule.
Yeah.
She was obviously very adamant about that. As long as you can stick to that, we're going to get along famously.
Yeah, and it's mentioned up front, so you know what you're getting yourself into.
LaQuanta and her cousin Stacy both lived with Katie, and they had to follow this rule. On December 5th, 2003, LaQuanta went back to the apartment to pack up her belongings. She planned to spend the weekend on the 5th through the 7th at the apartment. Later that day, she called her mom, Pam. LaQuanta was upset and asked Pam for a ride back to Montgomery. LaQuanta and her former roommate had gotten into an argument about something, but she never told Pam exactly what it was about. I think, the problem Pam had was that she just couldn't pick her up. So LaQuanta called someone else, and she did eventually end up getting back to Montgomery that same day. Pam Riley later said that she never asked what the argument was about because she didn't want to pry. And according to AL.com, she said, "That is my one regret."
Yeah, I can see that sitting with somebody after your daughter goes missing. You're thinking, I wonder what was up that day. I should have probably pushed a little harder.
Yes. Yeah. You and I talk about regret a lot when it comes to the family members of victims. And one thing that I often say is, really tough to blame somebody for not asking about it. It's never going to stop the fact that regret is going to seep in. You just wonder, obviously, what it was
right.
that the argument was about, but also, if you had asked and you had been told, could you have changed the situation? And would it have ultimately changed the scenario and what ended up happening? Because LaQuanta Riley disappeared from Montgomery, Alabama on Sunday, December 7th, 2003. LaQuanta's cousin Stacy and her Aunt Katie were in Georgia the first week of December 2003. Stacy said that she spoke with LaQuanta on the phone several times, The last time they spoke was on the afternoon of December 7th. LaQuanta was staying at the house with her uncle. Later that day, LaQuanta got into an argument with her uncle, and she called Katie to tell her about it. Katie later assured the police that this argument wasn't serious. Basically, LaQuanta wanted to have a boy over, and her uncle told her no. They argued about it, but LaQuanta eventually conceded to the rule. And Katie reported that there was no lingering animosity between them.
Hey, the house rule's the house rule.
Yeah, and I think just because your aunt is away, the person that told you the rule, doesn't mean it's going to change. Now, it doesn't stop people from maybe testing another person in the home.
Hey, if you never ask, you never know.
That's true. A male friend picked LaQuanta up at Aunt Katie's house around 11:30 p.m. She asked this guy to stop at her mother's house quickly because she wanted a warmer coat. So this friend took her to her mother's house, which was about 3 miles away at 3148 South Rick Drive. LaQuanta knocked on the door, and one of her brothers answered. He noticed the unfamiliar car outside, and he asked her who was driving. According to the Charlie Project, LaQuanta told her brother the driver was a friend she met from around the neighborhood, and the car was described as a dark green, four-door, possibly a Ford Taurus or maybe a Chevrolet Caprice. LaQuanta's brother later said that he couldn't see the driver, and LaQuanta didn't offer his name. She went inside, she got a warmer jacket, and then quickly left. She seemed as though she was in a rush, and her brother said later that she didn't seem interested in speaking to him. Now, it is interesting to note that she left her purse and money at her mother's house. She left the house at 11:40 p.m. Her brother watched her get into this unfamiliar car with the unknown driver, and this was the last time that she was seen alive. LaQuanta never came home.
Maybe she went to the house, to get the warmer jacket, was in a rush. Her friend was waiting. She didn't want her friend to wait too long, so she ran in, didn't have time to talk to her brother. I mean, growing up, I remember doing that, coming home late, needing to get something. My brothers were there. I just didn't, have time to chat with them because my buddy or somebody was waiting for me to get back to the car. So I can see that playing out like that.
Yeah, no, I can too. I think to me, the purse thing is kind of interesting because you would think that would have to be an accident.
Yeah.
Most people, when they leave the house, they want to have, their money with them. Women want to have their purse with them.
Right.
They carry important things in there. We want to have our wallets and all of that.
I think if you wanted to send somebody a signal when you come into the house and the driver's out in the car, you have plenty of opportunity to pull somebody aside and say, this is going on, call the authorities or whatever.
Right. Her brother's there. I'm sure he would have done anything in his power to look out for her if she thought something was wrong.
Right.
Because there are some people, I think, that have speculated about this purse. Was it just an accident that she left it there? Or for some reason, did she leave it on purpose? Pam Riley was not immediately aware that LaQuanta didn't come home on December 8th. She reported her missing on December 10th. She got concerned because she hadn't heard from her daughter for a few days, and she hadn't seen her since December 7th. LaQuanta had also not contacted Katie, Stacy, or any of her brothers. And like we hear about so many times, right? It just wasn't like her to leave without telling someone where she was going. And we mentioned it, right? She left behind her purse, her money at Pam's home. So as I think most parents would, Pam immediately thought something's wrong.
Yeah, my daughter didn't come home. She doesn't have her purse, doesn't have her money. Where's she at? What's she doing?
And so those thoughts start to creep in, right? Okay, what happened? Did something terrible happen to my daughter? She called the Montgomery Police Department, and they gave her the normal speech, right? What we've heard so many times. LaQuanta was an adult, and she had the right to go where she wanted.
The problem with that is that Pam and Katie both knew that she was not the type of woman to run away.
And I understand that. And I'm sure they relayed that. But for the police, what are they looking at? The facts. She's 19 years old.
Yeah.
She is technically an adult. She can do what she wants to do.
And there was no foul play going on.
Yeah, there were no signs of foul play. But basically, because of all that, they didn't want to launch a full investigation. So what does that mean? Right? They didn't perform any initial searches. They didn't put out, any type of information to the public to be on the lookout for LaQuanta. And we discuss it so much, Gibbs, there are ramifications, right, to every decision that is made in these types of cases. There are times where I say, wow, I can't believe the police did this, or I can't believe that they did that. I don't know if this is one of those times for me. Now, if she was 16, 17 years old, I think it would have been different, or it definitely should have been different. I think this one's a little bit grayer, right, than some. You can see the police's perspective.
Absolutely.
You can also see the perspective of the family saying, hey, she's been gone for a couple of days. This is not like her. She would never just leave and not tell us where she is. You can see both sides of it.
But I think the police are saying, look, we don't have the resources to spend on this unless we know for sure there's some type of foul play.
Katie and Stacy returned from Georgia a few days later. And, Katie later said she was hoping LaQuanta would be there waiting for her, but she wasn't. Her family couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible had happened. We kind of touched on it already, but I think what concerned them the most was that she had just left everything behind, right? Including her purse and money, which we talked about, but it was more than that. If she was going to go somewhere, okay, there are certain things that you just kind of automatically think a person is going to want to take.
Exactly.
And she didn't take those types of things, right? What if she goes to a club? What if she, wants to pop into a convenience store and get a Snickers? Well, you're going to need ID for the club.
Right.
You're going to need money for the Snickers bar. You don't have any of it.
So how are you going to do any of that?
Hey, Gibbs, what do U.S. News, PC Magazine, and Popular Science have in common? Well, they all ranked Simply Safe Home Security as the best home security of 2021. In fact, U.S. News just named Simply Safe the best home security of 2022 as well. I have been using Simply Safe for over 4 years now, and there's a lot of things that I love about it. I love the fact that you can personalize it. They have so many different options when it comes to sensors. Not just door and window sensors, but freeze, water, carbon monoxide. I love the fact that it's wireless. There's no wires in the walls, so it's easy to set up, but it also means that someone just can't simply cut my phone line to circumvent my home security system. They really have it all. Simply Safe protects your whole home around the clock, 24/7, every door, window, and room. And it's backed by the best 24/7 professional monitoring in the business. You really need to check them out. You can customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/TCAT. Go today and claim a free indoor security camera plus 20% off with interactive monitoring. Go to simplysafe.com/TCAT, TCAT. True Crime All the Time Unsolved is brought to you by Progressive. What's one thing you'd purchase with a little extra savings? A weighted blanket, smart speaker, that new self-care trend that you keep hearing about. Well, Progressive wants to make sure you're getting what you want by helping you save money on car insurance. Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save over $700 on average. And customers can qualify for an average of 6 discounts when they sign up. Discounts like having multiple vehicles on your policy. Progressive offers outstanding coverage and award-winning claim service. Day or night, they have customer support 24/7, 365 days a year. When you need them most, they're at their best. A little off your rate each month goes a long way. Get a quote today at Progressive.com and see why 4 out of 5 new auto customers recommend Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National annual average insurance savings by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2020 and May 2021. Potential savings will vary. Discounts vary and are not available in all states and situations. So the family decided to start their own search. And what else could they do, right? The authorities weren't willing to help at this point. They called all of LaQuanta's friends. They put up posters all over the city, and they drove around searching for her. But there was no sign of her. It was basically as though she had vanished into thin air. And let's go back to this runaway angle. Not even necessarily start a new life or anything like that, but you can lump it in if you want to. I do think it's two separate things though, right? Run away for a period of time. Okay. Well, she wasn't known for that. She was known for telling her family where she was. She didn't take the things that she would have needed for that type of, excursion. And then you factor in, wanting to get away from it all, start over, start a new life. Why? Right? We already said she was getting ready to start college.
Yeah.
She had plans, sounds like detailed plans. She knew what she wanted to do, the major, her ultimate job. She also had plans to celebrate Christmas with her family.
Yeah, she already started buying Christmas gifts.
And this is something that you bring up quite a bit, Gibbs, in these unsolved cases. If you have a plan, right? Let's assume this is not a spur of the moment thing.
Right.
If you have a plan to do something, why then would you do all of these other things leading up to it if you knew they weren't going to matter, right? Sometimes we talk about stocking the fridge, buying this, buying that, when you know you're not coming back.
You might want that money for where you're headed.
Sure. But then you don't take your money anyway. So, to me, and I go back to it time and time again, it's the circumstances around the disappearance that I think, police really need to take into consideration. These things to me are pointing away from an adult who leaves voluntarily,
right,
for some extended period of time. They just don't seem to match.
It doesn't add up.
It was said that she even bought a brand new outfit to wear to Christmas dinner, blue jeans and a brown and white top. The family had this tradition where they got dressed up in new clothes every Christmas.
Just like you.
Just like me, except we're matchy-matchy, which I don't like. But LaQuanta's clothes were sitting in her closet with the tag still on. Again, another thing, just kind of pointing away from someone who was planning on running away. And to this point of her being close to her family, right? Communicating with them, kind of always letting them know where she was. It was said that the longest she had ever gone without speaking to anyone was just a couple of days. And by this point, they were well past that kind of time frame. And let's not forget, Gibbs, Pam had already lost one daughter.
Yeah, tragically, yeah.
And I think that factored in to her thinking she didn't believe that LaQuanta would put her through such a stressful situation on purpose, knowing, and we talked about it, the tragedies that the family had already experienced. So, Pam became convinced, I think pretty early on, that someone had hurt her daughter. And she got extremely frustrated, as many parents do, as many loved ones do. She felt as though the police weren't doing anything. She got angry because there was no Amber Alert service for adults. She also didn't like how, police failed to search their home. They wouldn't check into phone records.
I can see where that frustration is coming from.
Sure. And, go back to what I said. This kind of gray area.
Yeah.
Is this a missing person? Is this an adult who left? I think as the days go by, okay, I think then the thinking has to start to change, right?
I would think so.
When you don't even hear from this person,
Yeah.
no phone call, no nothing. At a certain point, police have to take the disappearance more seriously or treat it as a disappearance.
Right.
And kind of move away from the notion that this person just kind of went off on some type of extended trip. About 2 weeks after LaQuanta disappeared, Pam Riley received a strange message on her answering machine that she believes is from her daughter. According to AL.com, the message was mostly inaudible. It was described as garbled. But Pam believes she heard the caller say, "Leave me alone," or "Let me go home." And she is sure that it was LaQuanta's voice. She said she heard a man's voice in the background say her daughter's name clearly. But then the call disconnected. So we already said Pam's upset. She's worried. She's thinking the worst, hoping for the best, but fearing the worst. This has got to make it exponentially harder on her to think things are okay.
Yeah, because now you're like, someone's got my daughter. They're trying to hurt her. I got to find her.
Yeah, because I think at this point, after the message, she believes someone was holding LaQuanta hostage. She later said, "I can imagine her some kind of way getting to a phone. Now she gets panicking. It was like she was saying, 'Leave me alone,' or maybe she wanted to go home." Pam immediately called the police, and 2 detectives came out to her house. They made a copy of the message, but they were not able to trace the phone call. But what I think this message did, Gibbs, was that it did change police's perception.
Yes.
Right? They started to think, okay, maybe there is some foul play here. So it caused them to intensify their investigation. They put LaQuanta's information into the National Crime Information Center computer. Detectives contacted local hospitals and jails to see if LaQuanta had either been hurt or maybe, she'd gotten into some type of trouble. They even called the county morgue, worried that she was entered in as a Jane Doe because she didn't have any ID on her. But no one matched her description, so they can't find her.
Right. But now the police are finally pursuing this investigation.
Yes, but we are 2 weeks on.
But I'm sure her family's happy.
Well, I'm sure they were happy that the police are now in it.
Right.
They couldn't be happy that they lost 2 weeks.
No.
To me, Gibbs, 2 weeks is a very long time.
It's a critical time.
And, what do you lose? What do you miss? What information was out there that now is no longer there, and you're never going to be able to get it back? You're never going to be able to find it. You don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Couldn't say it better myself.
But you could try.
I could, but I won't.
But detectives were in it now. They started canvassing the neighborhood. They spoke to LaQuanta's friends. They went to all the places that she frequented. No one had heard from her. But it was said, Gibbs, that a lot of her friends refused to talk. And it's theorized that this was most likely because some of them were fearful or distrustful of the police. And you do have that.
It's not uncommon. But actions like that will also hinder the investigation.
Yeah, and detectives said that it did. By September 2004, the case had stalled. Sergeant Scott Martino, a detective, told the Montgomery Advertiser, "We've come to the point now where we've talked to everyone. Right now, she's still considered missing, and we hope for the best. We hope that we'll find her alive and well." And what else is he going to say? Gibbs, he's saying the right things.
Yeah.
The problem is, this is like 8 months later. 8 months is a very long time. I can only imagine what the family is thinking at this point. Her mom, by all accounts, from what she said, she was thinking, some pretty dark thoughts right from the beginning.
Sure she was.
Based on what she knew about her daughter, knowing that her daughter wouldn't just leave without letting someone know, or at the very least call them. My assumption is it had to have been pretty dark after 8 months for Pam, at least, maybe even more of the family. But, like we always say, you can't give up hope. But how do you stop those dark thoughts from creeping into the back of your mind?
Yeah, I think it'd be really difficult.
I do too. According to AL.com, Detective Dante Gordon worked on LaQuanta's case for 2 years, starting around 2005. He said that he heard about the voicemail, but never obtained a copy. He described the case as strange because they never got any real leads. He said, it's different. It's been this long, no leads on it. No one knows anything, and no one is talking to us about it. He said that they followed up on anything Pam Riley told them. They tried to interview all of LaQuanta's friends and acquaintances, but according to him, no one wanted to talk to us. No one wanted to cooperate with us. It was a missing person case. It wasn't a criminal case. We just couldn't make anyone talk.
Again, that's very difficult for the investigators. If no one's talking, what are they going to do?
And I get it. Over the years, there have been a lot of people who have been mistrustful of police, especially in certain cities or certain areas of the country. My thought, though, is, Gibbs, if you're really a friend of this person, wouldn't you want to try to help?
You would think.
So, that part seems a little strange.
Yeah.
To me.
Especially later on in the investigation, years later, who are you trying to protect? Just tell them anything you know.
I think they were trying to protect themselves if they were mistrustful of police. Not that they had done anything wrong, let's say, or having to do with LaQuanta's disappearance. I don't know about that. A lot of people just do not want to talk to the police because they don't trust them.
Yeah.
But to your point, it doesn't help the investigation. It hurts it to a great degree. They also had a problem with rumors. The Riley family had received a number of phone calls from people claiming that LaQuanta was being held somewhere against her will. One prison inmate claimed she had been killed and thrown into a pond in Prattville, Alabama. He later said he saw the body being buried, but he couldn't remember where. Eventually, though, he admitted he had been toying with the police and he had no idea where LaQuanta was.
Because he was bored and had plenty of time on his hand. He thought this was fun to do.
Yeah. And you talk about heartbreaking for the family.
Yeah.
To get a call with this type of specific information. Not only is this guy saying, your daughter's dead, she's been killed, she's been thrown into a pond, I saw someone bury her body.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unimaginable to hear a voice on the other end of the phone telling you these things about your missing loved one. And then to find out that it was all just a sick joke, a hoax.
Roller coaster of emotions going on there.
Well, and obviously this was a prison inmate. I have no idea what this person was in prison for, but you got to be a sick individual.
Yeah.
To toy with a missing person's family like that, or a victim's family. Katie Smith told the Montgomery Advertiser, the rumors are terrible. If you listen to them all, they'll drive you crazy. If she did leave because of something she thought we wouldn't be understanding about, we want her to know we love her no matter what, bad or good. I love her. It was also said, Gibbs, that LaQuanta's mother, Pam, listened to that voice message over and over until, unfortunately, a power outage erased it from her machine.
And I can see me doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Just listening for any type of clue.
One more time and I'll hear that one thing that I need to hear. That had to have been heartbreaking because it really was the one clue that she had leading, to her daughter for a number of years. But 2 years later, there was a little bit of hope for LaQuanta's family. Her name was used to lease an apartment in Stone Mountain, Georgia. And we mentioned Stone Mountain already. That's where LaQuanta had graduated from high school in Stone Mountain. So I think, Pam was all in.
Well, you had to be somewhat excited, right? That
yes.
Maybe we got something.
Right. There's a connection. This is not, some place that LaQuanta was unfamiliar with. Pam was all in thinking that this was her daughter who had, rented this apartment. Pam drove 3 hours to the apartment complex. She spoke to some of the tenants. One man said he had seen LaQuanta living there for the past 2 years, that he'd been there. And according to Pam, she showed him a picture of LaQuanta. This tenant said that she had lived just down the hall, but moved out just a few days before Pam got there. This tenant also said that LaQuanta had once asked to use his phone after she got into an argument with someone.
And as her mom, Pam, I'd be excited that maybe this was her, but I'd also be really kind of upset. Where have you been?
Why haven't you called?
You know that we're all worried. Whatever the reason, you could at least told us you were okay.
Yeah. I think the problem with this is no one really knows for sure if this was actually LaQuanta. This guy saw a picture. He said, yes, it was her. Was he correct? Was he, wrong about the picture? Her name was in the resident database, but obviously gives it's possible that someone else was using her identity. Like we said, if it was her, what reason did she have for not contacting her family? Pam told AL.com, I can't fathom her being there.
It would be devastating if she was, right? So how could you ever accept the fact that she chose to leave you and your family to be on her own and not have any communication with you if there was nothing wrong?
Right. No big fight. No reason for her to feel like she needed to get away.
Yeah.
I think it would be hard to accept. Gibbs, let's take a break. This episode is brought to you by Surfshark. The internet is getting more dangerous by the second. Hackers have more ways to target you. Trackers are following your every move, and malware is hiding all over the web. Well, luckily, there is a solution. You can get a VPN. It will hide your real location, making you more difficult to identify and target. But privacy and security are not all that Surfshark has to offer. If you use a VPN, you can forget about geo restrictions. You'll be able to access everything from news sources to social media apps that are currently unavailable to you because of your location. All you have to do is change your virtual location and access all the entertainment you want safely and securely. And you can try out Surfshark completely risk-free because they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. I've been using Surfshark for a while now, and it gives me tremendous peace of mind when I'm using the internet. Get Surfshark VPN at surfshark.deals/TCAT. Use the promo code TCAT, TCATT, for 83% off and 3 extra months free. That's surfshark.deals/TCAT. And there really have been no new leads since then. What there is a lot of unanswered questions in LaQuanta's case. I think first and foremost, we have to go back to, who was LaQuanta with on the night she disappeared? We know it was a male. Was this some type of new friend that maybe she had just met, or was it someone that she knew well?
Yeah, we knew that he drove the green 4-door car, Ford Taurus, or
Caprice, maybe. Yeah. Her family has never come out and named anyone that they suspect. Police haven't named anyone either. Again, none of her friends were willing to talk about anything that they might know. So we don't really know how she knew this person. Maybe he was a friend of a friend, maybe a new romantic interest. Obviously, she trusted him to the point to get into the car with him and take a ride somewhere.
Yeah, because at one point when she went to her mom's to get a coat, she had the opportunity to not get back in the car with him.
I think that's a great point. She had been in the car. So if she was distrustful of this person, if she thought anything was wrong, at the point she got to the house, she could have blown the whole thing up, right? Told her brother, told her uncle, told someone, or just told this guy to get lost. I don't want to ride with you anymore.
Right.
And it's thought that, if this guy was from her neighborhood, someone else most likely would have known him. But again, if her friends were unwilling to talk, maybe they did know who this guy was, but they were so distrustful of the police, they didn't want to share that information.
Or the loyalty was more towards this guy that drove her.
Maybe. And then we really, have questions about where they went. Did the two of them go somewhere alone? Did they go to a party? Was this a date? Again, to me, I go back to wherever they're going. Wouldn't she have needed her purse? And then I think you have to move on to the voice message and ask, was this really LaQuanta on the message? I mean, one thing that people point to is, what are the chances that this was just a random call?
Right.
From someone who left a voice message that Pam says sounded like LaQuanta.
I mean, I think a parent would know their kid's voice.
Well, I think they would. Now, you could say maybe it wasn't random. We just talked about a guy who chose to mess with this family.
Right.
We've seen in a number of cases where people got something out of, for whatever reason, I'll never understand it, kind of tormenting the family of a missing or murdered person, either by calling, leaving messages, leaving cryptic clues. But you're right. I do believe that if one of my daughters left a message, I would know whether it was them or not.
Yeah.
But we don't know the quality. It was said to be pretty bad, very garbled. So does that change the equation? Now, Pam was pretty sure that she heard a man say LaQuanta's name in the background. And, if that is true, that changes things a little bit for me.
Yeah, it gives it a little bit more credibility, right?
Yeah. That's related at the very least to her disappearance. Gibbs, I just don't know about the runaway angle. If there wasn't so much information out there about, LaQuanta being happy, looking forward to her future, being in a good place with her family, she loved her family, then, maybe I would consider that possibility a little more seriously. Again, it just doesn't seem to fit in this scenario.
Yeah, you're not really hearing anything to counter that.
No. Some people have questioned LaQuanta's argument with her roommate. This argument, whatever it was, sent her away from her old apartment where she had planned to stay for the weekend. The problem is we have no idea what the argument was about, whether it was serious or not.
I mean, if you think worst case scenario, what could these roommates argue about? Maybe it was a boyfriend. Maybe the roommate wasn't happy because she was hitting on her boyfriend or some scenario. And it got really ugly.
And something bad happened.
Yeah.
And somebody was forced to cover it up. So the one question I had about that is, you would think the police would have found this roommate, would have talked to this roommate, just really couldn't find anything about that.
No.
So I don't know. And then, we talk about this apartment in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Pam drives out there. The tenant says, yep, I know that person. She lived here. So that raises the question, did LaQuanta rent this apartment in Stone Mountain? To me, it seems very suspicious that she all of a sudden up and leaves the apartment just days before Pam arrives.
Right.
She would have had no idea that Pam was coming.
Yeah, because Pam got there pretty quick when she got the phone call. So the other thing I was wondering is, why didn't the police investigate that? Or if they did, most cases when you rent something, you got to show proof of employment, some type of credit history. Maybe here you didn't have to. Maybe they were okay just taking payment. But typically when you rent a place, you have to prove some type of rental history that you're employed.
Maybe even a photo ID. I mean, there are some hoops to jump through normally.
So what happened with all that?
Again, either it hasn't been reported on or police just haven't released it. So, they're holding it back. But I will say, this guy, this tenant, he seemed pretty sure, right? That he knew her. He said she used his phone and got into an argument with someone. Well, who did she argue with?
Right.
A roommate? Was she living with someone? Who did she call? again, like with many unsolved cases, there's a lot that we don't know. I mean, I think you have to ask the questions. Unfortunately, we can't answer those questions. And then I think you at least have to talk about the possibility that LaQuanta was kidnapped and trafficked. You know, I think sex trafficking is a much bigger issue, much more widespread than most of us would like to believe it is.
Oh, that's very true.
It's sad, but it's true.
Yeah.
You know, that possibility exists in a lot of unsolved cases involving women. You at least have to consider it.
Oh, yeah, because the numbers are staggering if you look at them.
Well, then the known numbers.
Yeah.
And we know that no matter what you're looking at, the confirmed numbers are always going to be lower than
the actual,
because you can't confirm everything.
Well, you're exactly right.
So I mentioned it, right? We don't have really answers to these questions. All we can do in this case is speculate based on what is really very few details.
Yeah, I mean, you could be on the spectrum over here or way over on this other side, depending on what you believe is true or what you just feel your instincts are telling you.
Well, the entire case is strange.
It's very strange.
From the message to someone renting an apartment in her name. You know, I keep going back to the fact that, you know, she didn't have a history of running away. She did keep in very close contact with her family. There's been really no reported known problems with them. What reason would LaQuanta Riley have had for running away and not contacting her family for years? It's hard to come up with one.
You'd have to get really dark and say maybe the life she had with her family was never that good.
Or as good as it's been made out to be or reported to have been.
Right.
For that to be the case, though, the whole family, the whole extended family would have to be in on, you know, covering up whatever dark type of situation may have existed. And that's kind of tough to do.
Yeah. And it doesn't seem to be the case.
No, I would say it doesn't seem to be the most likely scenario at all. Now, it's always possible that LaQuanta had, you know, some type of secret life. We've seen that in some cases. It does seem out of character for her. It seems to me as though she was a normal teenage girl, you know, getting ready to establish her independence, preparing for college, going out with friends. And at 19 years old, Gibbs, would she have had the money, the wherewithal to really just kind of up and start a new life somewhere?
It'd be difficult. You'd have to have some type of support system, right? Some friends or...
No support system. And why would she do it? She had so much going. A free ride to college. Her college was paid for. She got a scholarship.
Right.
Full ride scholarship. Why give all of that up? And to me, the answer is she didn't. Purposefully.
Right.
Voluntarily. I just don't believe that. LaQuanta's case initially got more attention because of Project Jason, a nonprofit started by Kelly Jolkowski, mother of 19-year-old Jason Jolkowski, who disappeared from his Omaha home in 2001. The foundation has an Adopt a Missing Person program, and LaQuanta was one of the individuals on the list.
I think that's a great foundation to have out there.
I do too. There are a lot of missing individuals.
Yeah.
And so I don't know exactly what the Adopt a Missing Person program entails, but I don't see how it can be anything but good.
Yeah. I mean, if it allows someone to come in and help keep a case moving, help shed some light on a case, keep it in the media.
Yeah. Donate money, whatever is involved.
Yeah.
Pam Riley founded the Riley Relief Foundation, which provides support and assistance for local families looking for their missing loved ones. She is also a member of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's Team Home, a peer support group to help families with missing and exploited children. Pam uses her foundation to help families find and use resources that they may not know about, like DNA databases. Pam told Alabama News, there are databases that are available that I myself didn't know about until about 9 years into my daughter's disappearance.
I mean, look, here's a woman that's been through a lot.
Yeah.
And I think she's somebody that can actually help other parents of missing people.
Well, absolutely, because she's been through it.
Yeah.
So anytime you've been through something that no one wants to have to go through,
Right.
Right off the bat, you're able to help a family very early on. This is what to expect. This is what I went through. These are some resources that you may not know about. Here's some databases. Let's get this moving. Here's something I wish I would have done early on that I didn't know about, but I do now.
Yeah. And I know how you're feeling right now.
Yes. And sharing that type of empathy and all of that. The one thing I will say, Gibbs, is as horrible as some of these cases are, we often see something very good come out of this. A lot of times, a mother, a family member devotes their life to helping other people because they know exactly what these people are going through. They've lived it. They are living it.
Yeah.
Every year on December 7th, Pam holds the Prayer and Praise Candlelight Vigil for Alabama's missing persons. She and the other parents read out all the names one by one.
Yeah, and I actually caught the video of this. It was very heartfelt to see them do this.
Yeah, I didn't see the video, but I imagine it is. I mean, first of all, you're remembering your loved one. You're praying for them. You're hoping that they're still going to return safely. But at the same time, you're doing it with other people in your same situation.
Yeah.
So how can you not draw strength from all of these people going through, essentially the same thing that you are?
Yeah, it's a good way to say, we're never going to forget about you.
LaQuanta's name is always on the list. Unfortunately, Gibbs, this is a list that seems to get bigger and bigger every year. And my understanding is the vigil started off in Pam's living room, but now it's gotten so big that they host it in downtown Montgomery. According to missingkids.org, Pam said nobody talked about these things. I hear people today and on the news talking about missing children issues, but back then, no one talked about it. The candlelight vigil is for us to be a voice for them. Out of sight does not mean out of mind.
Yeah, it's perfectly said, right?
Pam told Alabama News that her daughter was bubbly, full of life. There have been many thoughts that have gone through my head, and I have to make them go away. We're going to be the voices for them, whatever we can do to get the faces of the missing in the public and to be a support to the families left behind to grieve. So that's all great stuff. And I really applaud Pam for being able to do what she's done. But I want to go back to this one sentence. There have been many thoughts that have gone through my head, and I have to make them go away. This is something that I think about in every one of these episodes. How do these people draw on the strength to keep going, to stay optimistic? Those thoughts have to creep in your head, those bad thoughts. They have to. And she's saying it. They do, but I have to make them go away because to do what I want to do or to be able to do what I need to do, I got to push them out of my head.
Yeah. How else would you be able to function in life?
Yes. And how could she help all these other people be optimistic if she's not able to stay optimistic about LaQuanta? On May 14th, 2018, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released an age-progressed photo of LaQuanta at 34 years old. LaQuanta has a small scar on her nose. She had her ears and tongue pierced at the time that she went missing. She also had her name tattooed on her right arm and "Rest in Peace, Misha" on her left arm. She was wearing a yellow and green Echo shirt stonewashed blue jeans, yellow and green Reebok sneakers, and a silver chain bracelet. Since 2005, her case has been assigned to a number of detectives. All of them have claimed to follow up on any new existing information. In 2019, the Montgomery Police Department announced that the case was still open and they weren't giving up on finding LaQuanta. In February 2021, Central Alabama Crime Stoppers increased their reward from $1,000 to $5,000. The city of Montgomery is also offering $5,000, as is the Montgomery County DA's office. Anyone with relevant information could receive as much as $15,000.
If it gets somebody to come out and talk, maybe they'll come out and talk finally.
Yeah, maybe. We talked about how many people were hesitant, right, to even answer questions posed to them by the police. So, if you're hesitant about that, my thought is you're definitely hesitant about coming forward with information about what happened to LaQuanta. The one thing that I can't help but notice, last week we did a case in Australia where the reward for information was up around $1 million.
Yes.
But this is more consistent with what we see in missing persons cases here in the United States. $5,000, $10,000, $15,000.
I think if the reward was $50,000 or $100,000, maybe these individuals that have information that could solve this case or help solve this case would come forward.
Yeah, I agree with you. I believe there are people who would be much more willing to come forward with information for $100,000 than they would be for $5,000.
Yeah.
Maybe the $5,000, even though it's a lot of money, it's not worth it if they believe that this information might put them in a little bit of danger.
Oh yeah, it's definitely not, right? I mean, it wouldn't be worth $5,000 if you're going to put your family at risk.
Well, the bottom line is the higher it is, the greater the chance that someone is willing to come forward. I mean, there's just no way around it. Money talks. And there's a reason why that saying exists.
Yeah.
Because it's true. February 26, 2022, which just passed, would have been LaQuanta's 38th birthday. Her case is still open. The police firmly believe that someone, or maybe even multiple people, know where she is, know what happened to her, but are refusing to come forward. If you know anything about her case, or even if you think you might know something about LaQuanta's disappearance, you can call the Montgomery Police Department or Crime Stoppers at 334-215-STOP. In talking to the Montgomery Advertiser, Pam Riley said she encourages people who may know something about a missing person to come forward. It might be that one little word, that one little sentence you saw or overheard. This jumps out at me for two reasons. Number one, she's not just talking about her daughter.
Right.
She's talking about any missing person, because I do believe, she's gotten to the place in her life where, she's fighting for all missing individuals. But you and I have said this very same thing. It could be such a small little nugget that without any context means nothing at all. But given to the right people, they might be able to add the context that then makes that make sense.
Yeah, and then catapults the investigation.
Oh,
forward.
Absolutely. Cases have been solved on the smallest of details.
Yeah.
And that's why you and I always say, you might think it's nothing, but what's the harm to call it in if you think that there's even a minute chance that it has something to do with the case?
Yeah, let the experts figure it out.
Sure. Are you bothering them? I hope they don't feel that way.
Yeah.
They should be wanting to receive any and all tips that could even be remotely connected. Pam also said, it doesn't matter if you're a child or you're an adult, you better tell someone where you're going, because these people are not just taking small kids. Those missing are from 80 years old down to newborns. Everybody is at risk. We know my daughter went with someone she thought she trusted, but she didn't know their intentions. They were not trustworthy because years later, they have not allowed her to come home. So again, a lot to take away from this as well. You go back to stranger danger.
Oh, yeah.
That was a thought that it was all about the kids. And rightfully so. Kids need to be aware, but so does everyone else. When you and I say, keep your head on a swivel, we're talking to everyone in the audience.
We are.
I don't care how old you are. You need to be aware of your surroundings. You do need to let people know where you're going. You need to have plans in place because all of these things can make a difference.
There's bad people around every corner.
There is, and I'm not trying to scare the you-know-what out of everyone, but there's no harm in having a plan, being prepared.
Yeah, some little preparation.
Yeah, having a TCAT whistle.
Yeah.
Keeping your head on a swivel. I talked about it, I know a few episodes ago. This came up the other day. My wife and I went somewhere. She got out of the car. She had, her nose buried in her iPhone.
Yeah.
Now I was there, but I talked to her about it. I said, would you be doing that if you were alone walking through this parking lot to the mall? Please tell me no. She said she wouldn't.
Right.
I trust her because we do talk about that stuff a lot. Not just her and I, but obviously with the girls as well. I think it's extremely important. I maybe am a little hyper vigilant. Before I even open my car door, I've scanned the whole area. I've looked to see if there's anybody walking. I look in cars that are next to me. It's just the way I am.
I look at cars next to me too.
I'm not paranoid. I just feel more in control.
Yeah. When
I know what's going on around me. And I hope everyone is doing some form of that. You don't need to maybe get to my level because not everyone may handle that well if they get into that mindset all the time. But, Gibbs, as we wrap up this case, obviously this is one where there's not a lot of information. I mean, we have details about what happened, but very few leads in this case.
Right.
I go back to, police saying that they had a lot of trouble getting her friends and acquaintances to even talk to them. Okay. That's tough. Now, I'm assuming what they're saying is accurate, but I also took from, that last piece that we read, that last quote from Pam, as her kind of saying she believes whoever this man was that was in the car took LaQuanta.
Yeah.
I mean, she basically is coming out and saying that she didn't know their intentions. Obviously, they weren't trustworthy because they have not allowed her daughter to come home. And it's hard for me to think that unless this person was a complete stranger from, far outside of the area, someone didn't know who this person was.
It's a little bizarre.
But the questions remain, right? Where did LaQuanta go on the night of December 7th, 2003? Who was she with?
Yeah.
What happened to her? I don't know if her family will ever get the answers to some of these questions until someone out there who knows makes the decision that it's time. I owe it to the family. It's time to come forward and share what I know. Now, maybe there's no one out there that knows that would be willing to come forward that's not complicit. So I think it harkens back to something that you said, what's the incentive? Regardless of dollar amount to come forward, if you're complicit in the crime, you're not going to rat on yourself for a reward. So if that's the only people that know, I think it makes it very tough in some of these cases. But you're telling me there's not somebody that was living around there that knew a guy that drove a green Ford Taurus or a green Chevy Caprice.
Right.
I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, I do too.
That might not be the same guy. This was a girl who had a lot of friends. And I don't know, there's something off with this case when it comes to the lack of cooperation. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something strange about it. But that's it, buddy, for the disappearance of LaQuanta Riley. We do have some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Let's check them out.
Hi, guys. My name is Valerie, and I just wanted to leave you a quick note. I've been listening for a couple years now. Love you both, Team Mike. And Bergie, you and I have the same date of birth, even the year. So I find that always fun every year when you talk about your birthday. Hey, you guys, you're great. We love you and enjoy listening to all of your broadcasts all the time, all of the different episodes, both unsolved and solved, and even criminology. We enjoy you very much. Thanks so much. Keep your own time ticking. Have a great day.
Wow. We were born on the exact same day. My question is, do you have all the same aches and pains that I do? Because lately, Gibbs, I've been experiencing a lot.
You have been.
My back's been acting up on me.
You think you'd be like my age.
I know. We may have 2 more presidents before I get to that.
Man. I'm still waiting for you to put that little chair on your basement wall to get me down here. You know how
the assisted chair?
Yeah.
So that you don't have to walk down the steps? Well, exactly. It depends on how long we do the show. Let's wait and see.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that.
I'll spring for it.
Okay.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. Oh, I'm listening to a podcast right now or an episode, but I can't remember if it's unsolved or not. Anyway, that's not what I call about. But the thing I love about your podcast is you can tell that you guys are friends in real life. I've listened to other podcasts, and I can't get through like one episode because it seems like it's awkward, and maybe those 2 people were just put together to do a podcast. I might be wrong about that, but it just seems that way. But you can tell that y'all are really friends in real life. And I know sometimes you say you're not sure that if you're pronouncing things right, but you sound so convincing that I believe you. I believe every pronunciation that you make. So, there's that. And plus, Gibby, I say Illinois too. They just don't know how to pronounce their state. Anyway, love y'all. And I'm team both of y'all.
All right, great voicemail. So a couple of things. Number one, we are friends. We have been friends for a very long time.
Right.
I also get the question, Gibbs, about, why do we have, more humor in some episodes less? And I think it's because whatever comes naturally, we just do.
Yeah, we just roll with it.
Yeah, we don't force anything. And maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. About pronunciations, my theory has always been make a decision and go with it.
Yes.
And if somebody tells you you're wrong, so be it, but be confident.
I'm always confident.
I was talking about myself.
Oh, okay.
You're confident too in your wrongness. And I appreciate that.
I was right in my own way.
Hello, Mike and Gibby. You guys are awesome. You always knock it out of the park, and you make my days a lot better because I drive 2 hours each way to and from work in California out here in LA. And I just really appreciate all the research and all the work you guys do. It's just awesome. You guys are great. I just did want to mention that you may want to look into a case, Santee, California, 1992. A girl that went to the school I went to, Santana High School, she was found by her mother, stabbed to death in a mobile home park. In 1992, her name was Kristen Gray, and she was a cheerleader. And anyway, it was really sad, and I'd actually met her mother, Patty, and I just wanted to know if you guys can, maybe do that podcast and put it together. But anyway, pleasure to be able to leave a message. I hope to hear more from you guys, and I will, I don't know, just keep it up, man. You guys are awesome. Thanks.
All right. Great voicemail. I really appreciate you calling in. Sounds like a case we need to put on the list.
Sure does.
And we'll do if there is enough info.
Exactly.
Right. We always say that. Sometimes we find out that there's not, but man, some of those commutes in California are brutal.
And they are, man. And right now my son's out there.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he went out there for about a month to hang out with some friends and his cousin. She's lived out there now for a few years.
Oh, out there with the cousin?
Yeah, with the cousin.
Okay. I haven't heard that in a while, but it always brings a smile to my face.
Yeah. Those commutes are brutal, man.
Some, yeah. I mean, you hear about California traffic. So it's, California's got the weather, man. How do you beat it? But to get that, you got to put up with some other stuff. Traffic.
That's the trade-off.
We don't have the traffic, but our weather is horrible.
Oh, man.
It's hot and humid brutally in the summer and sometimes below zero. So you get what you get, and you got to live with the good and the bad.
Quick drive to work.
Yeah, quick drive to work.
Hey, Mike and Fergie. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Just like to say I've been binging like crazy. I accidentally stumbled upon your podcast, and I think you guys do an awesome job on everything that you've covered. I would like to maybe throw a case at you to kind of look into. How about the weepy voiced killer that took place in the state of Minnesota? Like I said, keep up the good work, and thanks for what you do, and keep your own time ticking. Thank you. Hey, Mike and Fergie. I forgot to add, this is Joel from Minnesota. I'm a truck driver, so I spend a lot of time on my tractor, and I listen to you guys all the time. And, I don't know if you can edit that together. But like I said, thanks again for what you do, and keep me entertained. Thanks. Bye.
Oh, I can edit it together. Not skillfully, but I can put it together.
I couldn't.
No, because you don't know how the editing works. Yeah, that case is very fascinating. The weepy voice killer. We need to do it. I know we've talked about it. It's on the list for sure.
Yes.
We just haven't done it yet.
Coming soon.
All right, buddy. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
This February on Pluto TV, we're putting the spotlight on iconic Black talent. Watch your favorite movies like Top 5, 48 Hours, and More Than a Game. And drop in to binge Black TV classics like The Bernie Mac Show and Moesha. Pluto TV has hundreds of channels and thousands more movies and TV shows, all for free. So download the Pluto TV app on your favorite streaming device and start watching today. Pluto TV, drop in, watch free.